The Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 5, Go-Getters, Afterthoughts. So what's the point of this episode? Well, it tells us that Rick and Aaron went out for a run, Michonne went off to figure things out, Enid and Carl grew closer together, they shared a kiss, a comic book Easter egg happened with them holding hands, and finally they went their separate ways. Enid went to the Hilltop Colony, and Carl hid out on the Negan truck. The Saviors reminded the Hilltop community what they are bringing to the table, and there was a change in which group of the Saviors met with the Hilltop leader, Gregory. It's now going to be Simon and his group. Maggie and Sasha fight with Gregory for a place to stay at the Hilltop so Maggie can be closer to the doctor, while Maggie shows her leadership potential and Sasha vows to stay with Maggie as Jesus backs the both of them up, possibly foreshadowed in Season 6, where Jesus showed a lot of interest in a painting of a queen with 3 figures, possibly representing Maggie as the future queen of the Hilltop, with Sasha and Jesus supporting her. And finally, this episode, Jesus was influenced by the recent events and his new friends to become more active and take a stand against Gregory and Negan. Some reveals in this episode. Maggie and Glenn's unborn child is fine, but Maggie needs to rest, which put her in a position to give orders like a leader and then help crush the car. The car, which was the Savior's plan on using as an example, they tied up the guards, apparently hanging them from the walls of the community, and locked everybody in. Seems like a stretch, but they also let the gates open while the car was blasting music, attracting a bunch of walkers they brought to the Hilltop. The Saviors actually planned on clearing out the walkers, reminding the Hilltop of the service that they provide, which leads us to a visit from Simon and his Saviors. This is the part where he says, "I am your Negan." Now, this is a fantastically acted scene between Simon and Gregory, which reveals the Hilltop was dealing with the Outpost Saviors group. They had a supply drop that was light, so the Outpost group took a guy, and then they sent Ethan back to the Hilltop to kill Gregory and return his head. Rick and group happened to be there checking out the Hilltop for the first time, and they were able to stop the assassination attempt, and a deal was made that resulted in Rick's group killing the Outpost group of Saviors before the Outpost could tell any other Saviors of the screw-up that the Hilltop Colony did, making the one supply drop light. So they got lucky, and now Simon is their Negan. This brings us to Gregory in a moment of weakness and sheer stupidity, tries to give up Maggie and Sasha. Now Maggie was right. He would die first. Maggie and Sasha are not in danger. Their debt was paid. They'd be taken to the sanctuary, sure, and Rick would be in some serious deep shit for lying, but luckily, Jesus knows not to trust Gregory's slimy ass. Now for some callbacks. The flower next to Maggie in the beginning of the episode was a callback to Rick Grimes waking up in the hospital with flowers, and the green flowers that Jesus put on Glenn's grave represents release. And this release comes full circle in an awesome callback, probably one of my favorites. See, back in Season 6, the green balloons were released to show that Glenn was still alive, and now they are used as a marker on his grave. And if you look at the graves, there's a very interesting callback to Episode 4 where Abraham's grave is one single point and Glenn's is split, so it has 2 points. And this calls back to Negan when he called Glenn number 2. Another sweet callback that's easy to miss is when Maggie put her hand on her belly at the same time she was putting her hand on Glenn's grave. Now this could loosely be a callback to Season 6. Glenn and Enid are in the church, and he tells her that people you love, they made you who you are. They're still part of you. And if you stop being you, that last bit of them still inside, who you are, it's gone. And this also powerfully represents that she needs to keep going, not just for her, but for her and their child. And this is cemented in the very end of the episode where Maggie says, "We don't need anything to remember them by. We have us." Another really cool callback to Season 1. This episode when Gregory says, "We don't bury them, we burn them." Glenn told Daryl in Season 1, "We don't burn them, we bury them." A complete reverse. And in season 6, they actually witnessed the burning of Ethan, and Maggie watched Ethan's girlfriend cry over his dead body, which would actually mirror her later on in season 7, not only crying over Glenn's dead body, but also his grave at the hilltop. And in that same episode, Abraham loses his necklace during that same scuffle that left Ethan dead. And in this episode, Jesus gives the necklace back to Sasha. Now, this callback is very powerful because that necklace was symbolic of Abraham moving on from Rosita and choosing Sasha. And now that symbolism is in the palm of Sasha's hand, coming full circle beautifully and tragically. And there's the damn painting that Gregory was telling Maggie that he loved it, and now Simon has it. And arguably one of the best callbacks in this episode. Last season, Gregory constantly called Maggie honey, and he constantly used the wrong name when speaking to her. And he continued that tradition this season until she sees that he stole Glenn's watch from his grave, and she pops him in the mouth, and she corrects him for likely the last time. She is Maggie Rhee. And the three girls praying could be a loose callback to season 5, where Maggie, Sasha, and Father Gabriel were praying together in the season finale. And now to the moments to remember. Carl missing the dartboard. Now, he doesn't have a gun, but missing the dartboard could be a setup for later on in a different episode where he is a bad shot. He does have his knife. In the comic book, Carl had a machine gun when he was stowed away on the truck. In this episode, it appears that he only has a knife, so he's likely to use that possibly to kill a couple saviors when he gets to where he's going. But another thing to remember, Rick gives Michonne a walkie-talkie, so look out for that coming up in the future. And the scotch is important because Simon says to put it in the Negan truck, and we see that when Jesus jumps in the one truck, he drinks the same scotch, dumps some of it out, and then we know that Carl said hi, so they are both officially in the Negan truck. And finally, one of the most important yet subtle things to remember, the watch. The watch has had some very heavy symbolism all throughout the series. It was given to Glenn from Herschel, and it's now given to Enid from Maggie. Enid, Maggie, and Sasha are likely to all have a very, very tight bond for the rest of the series, as long as they all are alive.
Subscribe now.